good afternoon, good evening. It is our honor to welcome you all to the 6th webinar of Decentralized Learning Series. Today, the Blockpool Acceleration Program will be presented. And without any further delay, I'm passing the floor to the moderators. Philip, Robert, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First of all, welcome to this event. We're very happy to be here. So thank you, University of Nicosia, for having us. Before we get started with the actual panel, Philip, do you want to give us a quick intro about yourself and the Frankfurt School Blockchain Center?
But yes, thank you, Robert, very much. Welcome to this very brief overview of what's possible in the area of SMEs and so on with regard to blockchain technology. And therefore, I would like to quickly showcase to you what at the Frankfurt School we have been doing in the last couple of years with regard to blockchain technology. Give me 1 second to switch on my slides. I just wanted to show you one slide, not much, but just as to briefly present what we have been doing. So we are the Frankfurt School Blockchain Center, which is an institute, like a think tank at the university. We are, with the Frankfurt School, a very small university sitting in Germany. It's a private university, and the Blockchain Center exists there since 4 years. We are doing a lot for the community, also a lot of conferences. We are having 4 larger projects, of which Blockpool, where this seminar today is organized from, is one of the top 4 projects we are doing. Besides this, we are also engaged in a couple of consulting tasks, for example, with regard to German banks, advising them on the digital euro. We also help a couple of startups getting a footprint in the space. We are engaging in education within our university. That's basically lecturing students in our university, but also we are doing quite some education in blockchain outside the university. For example, we have created a so-called executive training where we are now teaching 15 people in blockchain matters such that they can get the license of the German regulator, for which you have to prove that you have the knowledge. And we are also having engaged in multiple initiatives nowadays. For example, we are founders of the so-called DEC Institute. That's an auditing company which will audit blockchain knowledge sitting in Switzerland. And we, for example, have created a so-called DLT Talents program. That's a mentoring program where we are helping women to get basically empowered for the blockchain ecosystem. And there we are currently mentoring 170 women to get a footprint in the blockchain industry. And we had incredible 550 applications from women who would like to get somehow in the blockchain space. That was quite impressive. And with this, I think that's the most important point, Robert. I can also add myself that we are trying to be as well wired towards German politics in Berlin, but also to European politics in Brussels as far as possible. And we are also having quite some support from the industry. You see a couple of logos here. That's the companies which are supporting us. You have to know that we did not get any government funding for building the blockchain center. Therefore, we are heavily relying on the industry. And therefore, I always have to emphasize thanks to the companies who are allowing to do so. For example, Commerzbank in Germany, BMW in the past, Metaco, and so on. I think that's it for now. Robert, should I add more details, for example, on the DLT Talents program, or is this sufficient as a very quick introduction?
I think that's sufficient, Philip.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll move on with a quick introduction about Blockpool, and then we can get started with the discussions. So let me just share a couple of slides. Can everyone see okay?
Yes.
I'll take that. Wonderful. Thank you. So I just quickly want to get started with the agenda. You just heard the introduction from Professor Sandner and the Blockchain Center. I am myself part of that Frankfurt School Blockchain Center, and I'm a research fellow there. And I've had the pleasure of working with Philip for about 1.5 years. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to briefly introduce the Blockpool program itself. Then I will give a very high-level introduction as to the panelists that we have on board with us today. And then I'm really going to hand over to the panelists themselves. So first we're going to have a discussion, an introduction of their respective business cases, and then we're going to open up the actual panel discussions led by Philip Sandner and myself. Just a few words about the Blockpool consortium. Philip already mentioned it's one of the top 4 in our personal space. We are the project leader of, well, Frankfurt School is the project coordinator and project leader of this project. With us, we have the University of Nicosia, who are hosting today's event. So at this point, again, thank you very much. And we also have a number of experts on the consortium, including the European Crowdfunding Network, Insomnia Consulting, Fraunhofer, Enable, and the European Regional Framework for Cooperation. Now, the aim of the project itself is to accelerate and increase the uptake of blockchain and DLT technologies. Just a quick heads up, within the project, we shortened the expression blockchain and DLT to BDLT, so don't be surprised to see this abbreviation in the slides. Anyway, so the way we tried this is to base the project on 3 key pillars. So first of all, supporting the SMEs themselves through funding and mentoring, then education, because I'm sure you've all had this situation where you tell someone you're working in the blockchain space and they have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. And then the networking effect to basically connect the right people, such as developers, with SMEs that are looking for developers. So those are the 3 key pillars of the project. And those are reflected in our acceleration program. So I'm happy to announce that the acceleration program actually finished at the end of March. It was a 10-month program where 25 SMEs were ultimately selected to be part of the program, and they received a number of services. So first of all, they received funding, which is probably key for most of them. Then they were paired up with a mentor to guide them through the entire aspect of setting up a company. So whether it's administrative tasks or technical questions or just being a sounding board, that's the kind of job our mentors did. But we'll hear more about that from 2 of our mentors who are on the panel today. We also hosted quite a number of educational events. So there's a massive open online course and 2 webinar series available on the Blockpool website for anyone who's interested to have a look. They are, of course, free of charge. And we hosted 3 different boot camps. Now, of course, this project was planned pre-COVID, and those were supposed to take place in person. But of course, given the pandemic, we made the best out of the online boot camps that were available to us. And maybe you even joined a few of them. They were quite informative sessions about building your business cases or looking at traps, issues that might exist in the blockchain space at the moment. Now, just quickly want to give you an introduction or a teaser about this open call, as we call it. So we essentially gave companies from a number of industries the opportunity to apply with their blockchain-based business case. You can see the number of industries that were able to apply here on the slide. And the key advertisement here was basically the European funding and the acceleration program. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on analytics, but I just want to give you a quick flavor of what it was like. So, as I said, we had 25 spots to fill, and ultimately we actually had 109 applications from across Europe. As you can see here in the slide, there were quite a lot of applications from Germany and Spain, but overall, excuse me, there's some ambulance going past. Overall, it was a very, very healthy split across the European Union, which showed us that the blockchain industry is not just developing in a handful of countries, but is actually developing across the European Union, which gives us confidence. In terms of sector analysis, it was a very similar story. So we had a lovely split across the different industries. Initially, we were a bit worried about the financial services industry being too heavy, because of course, Bitcoin started off in the financial services industry. But as you can see there, it was a nice diverse mix of applications. Now, without much further ado, I want to start talking about the SMEs. So out of those 109 applications, we filtered 25 out, and we actually have a few of them with us today. So we have Stakes, we have Motor Blockchain, and we have Morphine with us. So their founders or CEOs will be presenting shortly. And then we also have the mentor of Stakes and the mentor of Greenovation with us. So let me just stop the presentation here and briefly introduce our panelists for today, and then we can get started. So we have Luis Martinez with us. He's a blockchain entrepreneur and investor. He is the founder of Stakes, and in the past he's actually founded a few companies. I won't go into too much detail, but we're very much looking forward to hearing his expertise. Alongside Luis, we also have the mentor of Stakes, Belen Suarez. She has over 15 years of experience in the social innovation sector and actually has a wide range of experience. So she's a team leader at BlockHub. She is on the normalization committee of Alastria, and she's an ambassador for Algorand. So quite a lot of experience there. We also have with us today Simone Brigina, who is the CEO and founder of Motor Blockchain. His background is that he's a project manager, and if I'm not mistaken, before founding Motor Blockchain, he was a senior solutions architect at Oracle. Another CEO that we have with us today is Vlad Centea. He is the co-founder and CEO of Morphine.io. He's also founded another company called Machinations.io. Maybe I didn't pronounce that right. Correct me later if I'm wrong. And he has a software background in software engineering and actually used to work at Deutsche Bank as a delivery executive, project executive. Sorry. And then the fifth person on our panel today will be Professor Horace Kreilmeier. He is a full professor of international management at the University of Vienna. His research interests cover quite a range of topics, including blockchain, crypto economics, token economy, but also things like the Internet of Things and supply chain management. So quite a lot of experience there. He is also a board member of the City of Blockchain. And the reason he's here today is that he is a mentor of the SME called Greenovation. So that was a very, very brief overview as to your CVs. In case I missed anything crucially important, please, by all means, you can add this in the next section. Because now we're moving on to the presentation of the business cases. And I would suggest that we move in the same order that I just introduced you guys in. So, Luis, do you want to start us off and tell us about Stakes?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Robert, for that introduction. And it's thank you also to the team at Decentralized. It's a pleasure being with you today. As mentioned, my name is Luis Martinez. I'm one of the co-founders at Stakes. And well, very happy. Let's just dive in straight into our proof of case. I will share my screen with you. And here we are. Can we see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. So just very briefly, so what is Stakes? Stakes is it's a marketplace network that we began back in 2018, and that has been, as stated, supported by the Blockpool program in last year. And during this period, we have actually developed an entirely new proof of concept, really putting together all the different learnings, both the learnings that we had in the past few years, as well as what we managed to learn during the program, this 10-month adventure. So just very briefly, I wanted to show you our proof of concept and where we have been working with. As mentioned, Stakes is a fintech project also. It's mostly B2B. It's founded here in Spain. We're in Valencia. And we mainly, the core purpose is to join the private sector and the cultural sector so that they can coexist in the blockchain. And basically, we want to reinvent the way these cultural creative productions are financed. So the blockchain has proved to be a very, very powerful tool for coordinating activities amongst, let's say, unknown participants. So having a very, let's say, staggered or very not very unified industry as it is the cultural and creative space, it has proven to be a very rewarding adventure, as mentioned. So as mentioned, our proof of concept's main objective was to incentivize the participation of the private sector. And we wanted to walk you through some of the things that we've been working in the past. We mostly fund and provide investment through tokenization models to several event formats or production formats that you see on screen. This can be a concert, this can be cultural festivals, esports, performing arts, documentaries, and lately we've been getting much more into virtual and streaming events, including NFT drops. Has been very interesting. And very briefly, we created this proof of concept at a very high level. The architecture just shows us, it's a matter of creating the event, being able to moderate it, and allowing tokens to be purchased with a value attached to it for the objective or the intention of generating return on investment for those investors, and at the same time financing the event. So it's a dual problem or a dual solution that we are proposing, and this is the rationale I just spoke about. As mentioned, we do tokenization. We deploy tokenization to provide a more liquid, let's say, investment to a very illiquid market. And most interestingly, and adding to the topic of the decentralized, we deployed a model which in the proof of concept, we just changed around one of the cultural incentive systems that you see on screen. And this is very interesting, the way culture and I guess overall creativity is funded. I think in Europe-wide, this applies to Spain, but this is actually I think a model from France and UK. So we all share these kind of incentives, but typically the state will centralize most of the taxpayer money to be allocated into different productions, right? And what we have done lately is proposed a much more, let's say, passive role for such institutions, public institutions, by allowing, and these are the what we call the fiscal transparency models, which are special purpose vehicles, allowing, let's say, instead of giving it and centralizing in the government, to actually allow this vehicle to concentrate these various participants or incentives, and not allow it to go all the way to institutions so that the institution allocates it, but actually allow the, let's say, taxpayer or potential investor, and this is a patronage model, by the way, to provide directly or choose which creative or cultural production they would like to be involved in. So we developed Stakes. Yeah, it's an incentive system. Of course, we have applied various mechanisms to allow these potential investors to come to our platform and get and provide them, let's say, with a model that is appealing to them. And well, we just show here very quickly some of the incentives that you use. As mentioned, some tax breaks that come from the model I just presented to you, as well as, of course, DeFi mechanisms for all the idle cash and, let's say, the cash management within the smart contracts that we deploy. And of course, ticket sales, right? Which is typically the ticket sales, which is a word we miss a lot these days because of the pandemic situation. But lately, we have found an interesting case from NFTs actually replacing such income stream. So just very briefly, our token price dynamics, and this would be one of the events. It's an inverted exponential bonding curve, which allows us to actually know how the token moves depending on the income stream's result. And well, this gives us a various of different, let's say, possible outcomes, which we allowed each event to, or each smart contract to govern and fully be automated with our DApp. So, well, we've been playing around with further use cases, as mentioned, some NFTs, which we have seen interesting, for example, for providing access, or we collaborate with some artists that really like to showcase a moment in one of their streams. For example, this at the end of the month, we'll be doing a very interesting even proof of concept within this line that will be showcasing an NFT drop with a live performance and stream, just adapting, as I said, to the current situation. And just to wrap it up, since I don't want to go over time, the intention of the project and its further vision is really to capture an entire, or to build an investable layer all over culture. As mentioned, we know this is a very troubled industry at hand, and Stakes is very well aware of this. And our intention right now is to fully reactivate it, and not only reactivate it, but change the way these productions and this industry is funded by the power, with the power of blockchain. So to do this, we're beginning to group the sector in, from artists, productions, everything we mentioned, as a, let's say, a first or third layer, excuse me, to begin interacting with our DApp, which then allows it to interact with the Ethereum network. And the whole system is publicly governed by our Stakes token, which will be released at a later stage this year. We're signaling September 2021. But that's it for me. I think I don't want to go over time. Just wanted to very briefly tell us about this proof of concept. You can also see our app live at stakes.events. It's a app we've developed for actually tokenizing each one of these events. And we look forward after these very interesting 10 months to, as mentioned, launch the token, and hope to very soon be onboarding more and more creative projects to actually reactivate live. So thank you very much. And yeah, I will pass the mic now to the next participant.
Hi, Robert. It's my turn?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Let me put the presentation on and share the screen. You cannot start the screen. You, Luis, can you stop sharing?
Should be available now. Yeah.
Now it should work. Can you see the presentation? Yes?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so first of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me, and I will try to give an overview of Blockchain project, and most of all of the advantages of being in Blockpool program and in general in acceleration programs. So I'm Simone Brigina. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Blockchain. Blockchain is the digital identity of the motorcycle. I have two big passions in my life. I am a motorcycle rider. I love to ride in the circuit. Actually, I'm with my year 1, with my year 6, and I love technology. As you told, I was working in Oracle. I also worked in Hewlett Packard, in Fujitsu, in Intel. So in 2014, I did a master in Agile Product and Product Management. I discovered the Lean Startup methodology, and I start searching a disruptive idea able to join my two passions. How can I create a company that join motorcycle with innovation and technology? And so I was able to create Blockchain. We started from the asymmetry of information theory. This is a theory that won a Nobel Prize. In every second-hand market, motorcycle, car, or everything, the seller knows everything about the product, but the buyer cannot trust the information provided. So the buyer cannot distinguish between a good or a bad product. As a consequence, is willing to pay only a low average price for all used product. If my product is better, I cannot prove it in the face of a buyer, so is willing to pay a price that is a low price. If we move the asymmetry of information problem to the second-hand motorcycle market, we have three real problems that we need to face. The first problem is the mistrust between the seller and the buyer. The buyer cannot trust the seller, so he's not willing to pay the right price. That is the second problem. We have a low value of motorcycle in the second-hand used market. And as a consequence, also modification and accessories in the motorcycle, there are a lot of tuning, modification accessories, they have a very low or null value in the market. So we designed the right solution. Motor blockchain is the digital identity of the motorcycle, always up to date. So we use, first of all, blockchain to create an ID, an identity of every motorcycle in the blockchain. And later we give access to the creation of an historical database to every user. So the user can save the photo of the invoices, of the receipt, of the components, of the things that they bought, of the mechanic doing the job, of the kilometers, of everything related with the motorcycle. Behind them, we have the blockchain technology, we have a timestamp certification, and we are going to develop a non-fungible token in the future. And now, if you are a seller, you can give access to the historical database to the buyer. So the buyer is now able to search inside the documentation, now is able to trust the information, so is willing to pay the right price for the motorcycle and the right price for accessory and modification. This thanks to the blockchain technology that certifies that every document is real, is not tampered, and the date of the upload of the document. So we enter in the Blockpool program and we received support to develop our application. The application is the entry point on the information from the user. We developed the first three pillars that you see there, the possibility to add motorcycle data, to add photos divided into typology, and to add details of the photos. And every photo, every document is protected by a privacy level, no? The three privacy level that every user can choose. We receive funding from Blockpool for this product that will be released in the end of June. Next steps will be to add invoice receipt and to add the mechanic data, so we can call the mechanic to certify the invoice. We are working with two different types of customer, business to customer and business to business. We are now focused on the business to customer launch of the product. So everyone with a motorcycle is our customers. We received part of the funding of the Blockpool program for this reason, because we had to dedicate part of the funding for the marketing, and we are used this funding for the launch of the B2C product, the application for the customers. This is the team. I'm the CEO and co-founder. Manuela De Romano is the other co-founder. She's copywriter and taking care of marketing. Carlos Callejo is our blockchain architect, CTO. Diego Marcic is working from an hardware side, is developing an IoT product because we are in another European program and we are developing also an IoT product that is going to be mounted in a motorcycle. And Alessandro Buzzi is taking care of our cloud infrastructure. But we always count on advisory team. These are only some of the advisor, our financial advisor, Rafael Girena, our Vicente Ortiz, our legal advisor. It's really important. This was the help of Blockpool. We received a dedicated mentor, dedicated tutor, helping us in startup technological field. We spoke with him about blockchain, about technology. He helped us in searching the development team. It was really an important point for us to discuss about it. No? It's always really good to have someone you can discuss, you can speak about it. He spoke the same language of me, no? So it was really good to have someone on board. So in order to resume, what are the main advantages that we saw in the Blockpool program? First of all, we received training and boot camps. We saw in Robert's presentation there we had a lot of really interesting training about blockchain, about startup, about technology. The second point that I value is mentoring and tutoring. We were in contact with Pablo, but we are able also to ask external mentoring, external session. If we have something that we need to speak with someone, there is always the possibility to access to an additional mentorship. This is linked to the networking because we made a really big network of people that we are now connected with, and we can count with them for future development. Another important point was the funding. Not all the program provide funding. Blockpool was able to provide 30K of funding, and 6 of this 30K must have been focused on marketing. No? So this is the reason why we, as a small startup with no budget, were able to focus 6K to the, only on designing the marketing campaign. Really important point to need this need. They need to invest at least 6K in marketing. And the last point is the roadmap and the KPI. When you need to share KPI, when you need to design a roadmap and to share a roadmap, you are really going to push yourself and your team to respect the KPI, to respect the roadmap. So this was also another really important point that we found in the Blockpool program. But if there is someone listening to us that is thinking, is real important to be in a mentoring program, in an acceleration program, in incubation program, these are, for example, 4 programs that in which we participated. No, 2 from the European Union, Blockpool and Blockstart, and other 2 from the Spanish government, Andalusia Open Future and the Go to Work. And you can find most of all these points in all the program. The only difference normally is the funding, because not all the program has funding, but funding is important, but is not always the most important. In fact, this is an email that I received just yesterday. Moto Blockchain was accepted from another program that I cannot disclose, because the email was tell me that I cannot disclose until a second email. But to let you understand the importance of the mentoring, of the tutoring, this is a program with no funding. We are not going to receive any money, but we are really going to receive help in the go-to-market, in reaching customers, in the development. So it's really great to be able to enter this type of program. So I really encourage everyone with an idea, with a startup, to search first for an incubation program to develop the idea, and later to different acceleration program, to not be alone, to be with someone that can help you. And in my last slide, I always used to close the presentation with a resume of the important point of Moto Blockchain. If you are in the program, you can insert point like this: AOE, Blockpool, Blockstart mentoring. You can advertise that you received mentoring. You can advertise that your project, like the last point, was evaluated and chosen by the European Union to be founded. This is really important, because it's helped you to enter another program, and is going to help us in December, when we are going to organize our investment rounds in reach the trust of investors. Thank you for listening to me, and I will be waiting for questions in the last part of the webinar. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Simone. Vlad, you want to go next to introduce your company, and then we can move on to the panel discussion.
Yes, sure. I'll try to be brief. I will share my screen now, and while I find this, yeah, I also want to start by thanking you and your colleagues for the support you gave throughout the program. First of all, I was really impressed with the fast responses that I always got. So you wouldn't expect that you get all the time reply to your emails or to your questions, not in the same day, but like 1 hour later or something like this. So the support was exceptional. And I just added this along with everything else that everybody said before about the program. So I'm really satisfied and very happy that we were accepted in the program, and we finally reached this point.
Vlad, sorry to interrupt, but we seem to be having some microphone issues with you.
Is this better?
Yeah, every now and then it's a bit interrupted. There's a bit of static, but yeah, just wanted to point this out. Maybe there's something you can fix on your side.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try to hold it this way, and maybe is this better?
Yeah, that's much better. Thank you.
Okay. Now about our platform. So Morphine is a platform for user engagement using tokenization and gamification techniques. And one of the major use cases for tokenization, except financial assets and regulated assets, which is in most cases STOs and this kind of issuance, is for tokens used as rewards in loyalty programs, and especially in multi-brand loyalty programs. And this is the problem we focused on with our platform. We started from the fact that basically a third of the people in participating in loyalty programs, they don't use the points they get. There are like $1.5 trillion lost because as a cost of lost customers, and a very little, like only 46% of members in loyalty programs are actually active in these loyalty programs. So it's a lot of lost value, and it's very little engagement with this. So we saw an opportunity first in using blockchain to increase the ecosystem when a company or a brand is using points, in this case tokens in a loyalty program, that will allow participation of other brands and of people and make those more liquid if they are on the blockchain. And second problem is the way people interact with loyalty programs. Because right now you interact via a plastic card, or maybe in some cases with a branded application of the brand, which is issuing these loyalty points. So our approach is to create a wallet, basically the smartest wallet possible, that will reward you in different ways that the brand is choosing to reward you. And then in this wallet, you also have the possibility to exchange tokens from one program with another program. If another brand or partner brand wants to participate in a loyalty program, it can. This is now happening only in very few loyalty programs, like airline miles, for instance, where you can, with airline miles, maybe buy merchandise from an airport, or sometimes the airline miles are distributed with credit cards. But it's very limited. It's not on the blockchain, so it's a very complicated solution. And participating to such ecosystem, it's very difficult for a brand or for people. And when you have airline miles, you cannot trade them for anything and so on. So this is the opportunity for using blockchain technology in such programs that will give flexibility to the users of the miles and to the issuers. So this is where we are going with our solution. I will show you a use case directly for customer loyalty and few screenshots from the application. Things that you can basically do with our platform is define what actions do you want to reward by giving tokens. For instance, in this case, it's creating a customer profile. So basically, the issuer will we issue an amount of token into a master wallet, which is the issuer wallet, the brand. Yeah? Let's say it's a supermarket. Yeah? And then they want to learn more about the customers. Yeah? And people will build their customer profile in the application by answering questions, filling surveys, and so on. And they will be rewarded for each action with tokens that we'll collect in a wallet. They can also reward each other. They can send messages on social media and get rewarded for that token. So basically, it's a very flexible token distribution system based on action that you can define on the platform. So nothing what you see here is hard-coded. Everything is defined by an issuer, which has a tool called Scenario Editor, in which all these buttons that you see on the screen are defined in this, only with the mouse, not you don't have to write code to do this. So the issuance is done on the platform, and then the distribution mechanisms are done also with the tools of the platform. So the end user just press buttons or is doing some actions. For instance, we can reward with tokens when somebody is doing steps, when somebody is riding a bicycle. So are various triggers which can trigger token distribution. And then you have the wallet, which is the, let's say, the main pillar of the application, in which you have all your digital tokens. And then it acts like a normal wallet. It's a hosted wallet for the time being, so it's not, the keys are still on the platform for this. And you can also attach other wallets that you have, like a Euro wallet or Ethereum wallet for the time being. Yeah, and these are other type of tasks. So you can upload a photo if you want to encourage content creation for your brand, and you want to make a campaign for content creation and so on. So you can reward for this, for making photos, uploading photos, answering questions and so on. So this is in a nutshell what the platform can do. We currently have also a customer which is distributing tokens for carbon emission reduction. So basically, it's a non-profit organization who wants to use our platform to reward people for going with a bicycle to work, and they will get some tokens of carbon reduction, and then the companies they work for will redeem the tokens and pay back the people for reducing the carbon footprint of the company for which they work. So this is now an ongoing project for which we are implementing exactly this mechanism for rewarding for riding a bicycle. Yeah, so that's more or less all I wanted to say. But if you have questions, I'm happy to answer in the Q&A session. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Vlad. That's very interesting information and a whole lot of experience that we have on the panel here. So without much further ado, I'll hand over to Professor Sandner in a second. Just one point, we already have some questions coming in, and they really are good questions. So let's maybe aim for about 30 minutes of panel discussion, which would leave us about 10 minutes for Q&A. And with that, I'll let Philip take over the panel. You're still on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe you very quickly describe each of us. How has your journey been over the last couple of months? How did the Blockpool project benefit you? What have you learned? Where are you right now? Or to be very short in terms of questioning, did the project help you? Have you gone 5 steps forward or 3 steps backwards, right? That would be the key question I would like to ask all of you, if this is okay. Who would like to start? Luis.
Okay, I'll jump in if I may. Thank you, Philip. I think for us, it has been a very interesting, like I said, adventure. It's been a very interesting story. And I would like to highlight the situation of, as mentioned, the industry. You know, this is one of the most adversely affected industries given the pandemic. So being part of the Blockpool program, which was announced, I think we received notice sometime during April. So this is the let's say hotspot of the pandemic. It was very hard to see really where this industry and where the entire world was going. So for us, it was a very, very important milestone to be able to secure this grant, not only for the funding. I mean, the funding definitely was a help. It's definitely supports, and as Simone mentioned, this is a 20 to 30K grant. It's a significant amount of money, but let's say for a full year of startup operations, it can only cover a fraction of its real costs. And for us, it was a big difference regardless, because it allowed us not only to revamp our current tech and our app. We redesigned the entire thing. It allowed us to rewrite the contracts, while at the same time, during the pandemic, adapting to the situation. It would have been very hard to sustain the company for all these 10 months with basically the entire industry closed. I mean, we're looking now back at 2020, and 90% of European Euro area just revenues from the industry were lost during 2020. So this challenging ground was definitely supported by the program, and not only that, during this journey, it allowed us to also you need to think of new ways. We could not, for example, monetize streaming just yet. It's very hard to monetize a streaming event or a streaming show, as many of we have probably possibly all tried to been organizing webinars in the last few weeks or months. So having said that, I think it was very useful and very rewarding to find new ways and alternatives. As I mentioned during our presentation, for example, non-fungible tokens and this explosion that those of you involved in the, for example, blockchain space, we have seen a massive adoption by the creative and cultural sector of this particular standard or this particular token type. So having been able to make it for that moment was crucial. And this was one of our main benefits.
Very interesting. Maybe Vlad and Simone, maybe do you also would like to bring some insights? How was your journey in the last couple of months, not even having been easier due to the pandemic?
Yes, indeed. So for us, indeed was partially affected in many ways, including the team. Actually, the team was hit by COVID. So this was not very good when your senior developers are directly affected and they cannot work. But on the other hand, to be honest, I was very, very pleased with the mentor we had on the program because despite he actually had some scheduled meetings, so the program is asking from the mentors to have a certain cadence and have a certain number of meetings with the startup. Actually, he did more than that, and he was really involved in the project. I mean, he at the beginning made a big effort to understand exactly what the project is and to help us, to support us. And he came with ideas, and he connected us, with potential customers. So he gave us leads to, I mean, even to Bank of Lithuania. So he put me in contact with the lead HR from the Bank of Lithuania, because our platform also works for employee engagement, and he, like I said, he was very, very involved. He did much more than actually the program was asking for him, and yeah, it was great to have this support and networking in European countries that I couldn't touch any otherwise, without his support. So in this regard, it was very valuable. And also what I liked and I find very valuable was the part of the trainings in the program that was organized around fundraising, different ways of fundraising and so on. And there were very qualified people there, and they were also available to reach out to them after the seminar and so on. So there was a lot of support in very critical areas for a startup, like customer acquisition and financing. So from this perspective, this definitely compensated for all the troubles we had because of COVID and economic slowdown. So.
Okay, and are all of you looking optimistic into the future? Did you see your company value increase based on the basic development of the industry, based on new hypes out there and so on? So do you look optimistic in the future, or do you feel like, well, this is the wrong industry?
No, actually, I look very optimistic because the side effect of COVID actually was that more and more the brands and the companies are going towards digitalization and digital channels in their communication with their customers. So this is definitely an advantage for us. And this crypto bubble we are in right now is also raising awareness about the technology itself. So I'm not talking about asset prices here, but I'm talking about more and more awareness on the technology. So those two combined actually are paving the road to us, for us to scaling up and getting more traction.
Okay. What about you, Horst? Let's also involve you, of course. So what's your observation about the blockchain technology? You are sitting in Austria, as far as I know, right? So what's your observation after blockchain since 4 years, and especially now the Corona pandemic within the last 12 months? My observation is that we have been on a very good track, and then suddenly, because of Corona, everything slowed down a little bit, especially the foundation of new startups really broke down to a never known low number. That was pretty bad. But I also feel that since around second half of last year, especially young people, they now feel that, you know, it is a good technology. A pandemic, well, yes, of course, we have to somehow deal with it, but the technology doesn't really wait. So therefore, we also see the interest in blockchain really picking up. And then we have like the back burner, let's call it Bitcoin, with the skyrocketing price, which is then accelerating like the tendency of young people to found a company. That would be my impression. Horst, would you agree with this, or would you say that it's different what you observe?
No, I would agree to a large extent. You know, when I started around 2015, 2016, there was not that hype. Then the first hype happened with ICOs, and many companies got a bad reputation because of fraud out there. Then was what I would call the blockchain winter around 2018, 2019, and people didn't really understand the technology. And now my feeling is that the time is ripe now for the really interesting business models. Of course, there was some before that, but what we have seen today, those 3 companies are just great examples for what you can do with technology. And I just wanted to briefly mention, I was mentoring the company Greenovation in this Blockpool, and they're basically trading CO2s and energy tokens. And this is a very straightforward case for blockchain. And of course, trading has been done before, but now with blockchain, you can do it more efficiently, and you can do it on a peer level, and you can have really low transaction costs. So I think this business model is really exciting because it also has a huge sustainability effect. And in a nutshell, with blockchain nowadays, you can do things that were not possible before, or you can do things that were possible before, but maybe you can do it more efficiently. And I really believe that now we're in a phase where you can see real business models out there, and people slowly but surely feel that the infrastructure is getting to change, and they sense that blockchain can make an impact. Maybe not as big as the hype suggests in 2015, 2016, but there are some real use cases out there. And I don't think that the coronavirus had much of a negative impact. I mean, apart from the overall impact on the total industry, but in the background, many people were working on solutions. And I'm also doing a lot of industry projects, and I'm also doing academic research on what's out there. And I recently published, or I have a paper under review on how blockchain technology and DLT can help in cases of crisis. And I have to say there are many interesting ideas out there that you can only realize with a blockchain or DLT in the background. I don't have time to go into much detail here, but I leave it like that. But in a nutshell, I would say the time is ready now to come up with some great industry projects. And again, what we have seen today are just a couple of highly interesting use cases. And I'm really looking forward on what's going to come in the next years.
Okay. And Belen, what about your impression? Would you confirm this, or would you say no, your impression was different? Oh, I did the same. I also forgot to unmute myself. Therefore, it's basically normal. Even after 13 months of pandemics, we are still forgetting sometimes the mic button. But now it should work, Belén, right?
Yeah. Thank you to introduce this question, because it's a great question. The potential of blockchain or in the current situation depend on how do you see or from which perspective you assess. You could have a different answer. In my view, the current pandemic highlights some important key points. The first is the need of trust. The second is the need of more transparency in our ecosystem. The third is the vision of ecosystem. And the fourth is the need of decentralization, because we see how governments and different companies manage our life in different aspects, from the vacuum, from different areas. And we have the need to empower ourselves to control more our life. And undoubtedly, blockchain represents an important potential in this way. However, I think that we are in a valley of death. I don't know. We have to increase. We have to work more hard in successful customer user experience. The technology is absolutely the central pillar from which work, but we have to work hard in areas as go-to-market strategy, understanding and engagement of stakeholders of the ecosystem, because finally all the startups need to work from double materiality, from the perspective of shareholders, investor, and the owner of the companies or a startup, but both working to create a healthy ecosystem in where all the stakeholders could work together.
Yeah, I think that was a very good thought. Anybody wants to add something? Maybe Robert, you also observed the entire cohort of the program, also having an overview over 100 blockchain startups approximately. What's your opinion about how the startups developed? Where did they start? Where did they end? Did some startups may also default and stop their business? What's your observation about what's going on in the blockchain ecosystem?
Yeah, thanks, Philip. Good question. So we had 25 SMEs, and as far as we know, most of them survived and actually developed their product to the stage of the minimum viable product. We had one or two that tried to deliver, but ultimately ran into some roadblocks and decided not to pursue it any further. But out of 25 SMEs, that's something you would expect, right? So overall, we were quite happy with the results. Almost all of them delivered their minimum viable product, so that's already good news. And now, of course, it's up to the SMEs themselves to start advertising their businesses and get the next round of funding, because that's really the one thing that, as far as we know, is the thing that SMEs struggle with, to get that next round of larger funding to then scale their businesses.
Okay, and do you see that the pandemic really has hit the blockchain ecosystem at all? Because, look at Bitcoin, the Bitcoin is simply producing new coins every 10 minutes. The Bitcoin doesn't really care about a pandemic. There can be like the largest crash on earth, and Bitcoin is simply continuing to produce blocks, right? But blockchain startups are more vulnerable, let's say this. Did you see that the pandemic basically was a risk for them? Because it could also have been the opposite. Imagine you are now engaging in sales and sales processes. You can now do sales throughout the entire world without leaving your home. And in the morning, you're having a sales call in Japan, in the afternoon in Italy, jumping across the world from your home office. This has never been possible like this before. So in my mind, there are also chances. Actually, one little anecdote here. I also had a story coming up by Polish companies, where now US-based companies are approaching Polish developers to hire them because they can sit wherever they are. And of course, the US companies then pay US salaries. And this is, of course, attractive for the Polish IT developers, such that they then leave their local companies. This is also dangerous, of course. but it's an interesting world which is now becoming increasingly international with regard to work, sales, relations. So there are also some benefits. Any of you guys did see some benefits coming out of the crisis? You know, now the numbers are decreasing and we can get new hope. There will be conferences again and all this stuff. Do you look optimistic in the future now after the pandemic, having been founding a proper startup? Are you optimistic? Maybe this question would be best answered by Luis, Vlad, and Simone.
Sure, I'll jump in. Sorry, go ahead, Simone, if you want.
I have no solution for this. We need to wait that things are going to be better. Always we have our vision. We want to change the world in our small part, what we can do. If our vision can work also in a world after pandemic, we go on with our products. So we need only to wait. Maybe there are projects that in a new world cannot work as before. So in this case, the owner need to rethink about it. But all our projects, for example, can work in a pandemic world. So if we need to wait 6 months or 12 months or 2 years, we will be there with a more developed product, more advanced product, and we will be ready waiting.
Okay. Luis, Vlad, you would like to add something? Otherwise, I would also like the mentors to quickly emphasize their opinion about the startups, about the entire project. Did you see startups developing nicely? Do you have things to criticize? Do you have things to really acknowledge or appreciate? Any points?
Yeah, I can start here if you like. You know, for me, it was a great experience. You know, initially I was a little bit uncertain if I could provide them some technical expertise, but that was not what they really needed. Of course, they have the blockchain expertise, and the company I was mentoring, they already had some experience in the energy sector, which also made it easier for me. So we were focusing mainly on the business aspect. So I could help them with the business plan and developing presentations, and they made really great progress in that area. And I have to say, in the meantime, we already had interest for a couple of venture capitalists. And since the product is about energy trading and sustainability, it also appeals to a greater audience. And this is, of course, is not affected by COVID because we need energy and hopefully also more greener resources in the future. And I could see how they developed over the period of time. And the most interesting thing for me that I figured out that it's not so much technology, which might be a barrier in many cases, but in our case, it was mostly legislation or regulation, because the energy market is highly regulated, of course, and regulation might differ between different countries. So if you want to target a greater area like Europe, even worldwide, so legislation is the one factor you need to consider. And once again, if somebody's interested in green innovation, you can get in contact with them directly, or you can let me know. I'm happy to connect you. And from what I've seen, they are now in an excellent position to go out to the market. They have an MVP, and they are really very close to the final rollout. That's what I would say. So for me, it was an excellent experience, and thank you for initiating that.
Excellent. Well, we didn't initiate it. We have to really clearly emphasize this. We have been contacted, but a university has been needed for operate the project. That's why we then have engaged a part of the project, but also basically taking the lead. Any more opinions from mentors? That's more important than our project management.
Well, in my view, I think that I agree absolutely. It's a very interesting initiative, and not only because you can support in specific or technical areas to the startup, business or technological point of view, but I think that is more valuable the support between the different founders working on the ecosystem. Again, we have to focus on the ecosystem perspective. It's not only you can access to some kind of knowledge based on your experience. I highlight the ability of the startup to adapt to the context in case of a stage, make a great work in this way. When you are thinking about the perspective of scalability of a startup project, you have to keep in mind that perhaps your cycle model is more related to a butterfly than an elephant. If you see a small elephant, a big elephant, you have to change all the time. You have to adapt your solution to different markets. And I don't think that the better way at this moment is waiting that the thing change. I think that is the moment to adapt to the current situation and do your better in the current moment. But it's absolutely critical to create this knowledge, to create this energy in a collaborative manner between different partners, even when you are a startup, but even when you are a large company, now is the moment of be collaborative, sure.
Excellent. Yeah, perfect. Maybe back to you, Luis, and also Vlad, what have been your main outcome? Would you like to have a call out there? You know, you right now have an audience. There are 200 people in the call. Do you need test users for your startup? Do you need investors? Do you need to have clients? Do you need to have, I don't know, relationships being built? Do you need to employ people who might be in the audience? Any call for the audience to do something?
Yes, of course. So yeah, let's start with the last one. Yes, we also are looking for developers. So actually, we are right now looking for Python senior developer. So if anyone from the audience feels it's a Python developer, senior, hopefully, we want to get in contact with you. Of course, we are looking also for test users, especially for this next initiative with cycling for reducing the CO2. So the first community we are going to build on the platform is for rewarding tokens for going with the bicycle on the office. And yeah, of course, any kind of suggestions or if you have in your network people who want to invest in this kind of technology, we would like to talk to them.
And we need to send a new microphone to you because there have been some audio interruptions, right? But the message really still was received, right? You're searching HR testers and so on. Luis, Simone, do you need anything where the audience throughout Europe could help?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. In our case, we are rolling out. We were lucky to be able to get our new version, our first beta of the platform. It was a very, very nice update in our view, and it finally allows us to welcome basically anyone in this room who owns a wallet finally to get involved in our event. So yes, I would like to make an invitation to our new beta release, which will be launched tomorrow, specifically with a nice event covering a very interesting project. Will be an NFT drop with a performance. We're empowering artists to allow them to find new ways of distribute their content and also to communicate with their consumers, their fans. So it's definitely a very interesting shifting stand of the industry. We're happy to open way and to provide new alternatives to the industry, and definitely do follow us in whether it's on Telegram. If you're an artist, we would love to invite you to our Discord channel. We're looking for projects like you. We want to empower you. We want to help you find new ways of placing your content out there, and also find new ways of actually monetizing such content without having perhaps the physical spaces that we had. Also looking for a program. I think all of us startups will have that common denominator. We're looking for a senior stack developer as well, blockchain developer, and two developers actually. And also would love to hear from you if you would be interested in such a project. And if you guys also have some you're new to the space, you have some new some Ethereum, perhaps. We deploy to Ethereum network for now. So if you have some Ether or any other underlying tokens, we would love to welcome you to also, we look for you as an investor, as a potential investor, to help and promote these, to actually not promote, but actually help and support these potential artists. As mentioned, tomorrow we will open, and if you do choose to do that, you might be able to have some not only cultural perks or benefits, but also a return on investment to provide even more, let's say, returns to your current holdings or crypto holdings.
Excellent.
Hi, Philip. I have 3 questions in the QA. Can I answer them?
Yes, of course. This is also what I will now suggest, that we are now turning towards the Q&A, and then try to close as many questions as we can from the Q&A. Yes, Simone, then please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I answered one in the chat. They were asking about the problem of some data that cannot be published, maybe from the manufacturers. And our platform is designed to be GDPR and privacy compliant. So every user is free to decide if the information is public, if it's public only the title. So maybe you can see that there is an invoice, but you cannot access the document. On everything is private. And the owner is able to give access to someone interested. Imagine that you have a motorcycle, you see an invoice for a modification, you have the same motorcycle, you want to speak with me. If you contact me, I can give you access privately. So we are completely GDPR compliant. And the first question in the QA is about the blockchain. Which blockchain DLT are you planning to use for the identity and data collected from the motorcycle? And what kind of info are we storing there? We still need to be compliant with the GDPR. We are not storing any info in the blockchain. What we do is timestamp the certification. So we collected all the information from the user. We create a certificate that collects different information. We hash the certificate and we put the certificate in the blockchain. What we did is to create an architecture that is able to create a unique ID for a motorcycle in the blockchain, a unique ID for a user in the blockchain, so we can register that this motorcycle is owned by this user, and we can register that all this documentation is below this motorcycle. This is what we do. But if you search in the blockchain, you only will find a user ID, a motorcycle ID, so you cannot be connected with the real data without the Moto blockchain. Moto blockchain do the intermediary work. What blockchain? We started with Ethereum because we want obviously to be in a public blockchain, but the gas is impossible. So we are now developing the platform in Matic. Matic is a layer 2 on Ethereum. So we are using the same language, the same smart contract, so that in the future we can switch back to Ethereum when there will be Ethereum 2.0 and the gas fee will be lower than this. And there is another question about the business model. Is the business model profitable? I will answer you the next year because we're still on the development side. On the paper, is really profitable. We have also another program, another product. Not only this, we have an IoT product that we are developing that is going to be mounted on the motorcycle. So, and we are also going to work with business to business. Yes, we need find end customer, but every company that uses motorcycle could be interested. Every assurance company, imagine the value of this information for an assurance company. Imagine the values for the motorcycle manufacturers to access to our information. This is our next future development. And the last question is about the possibility to expand this project to other sectors. Yes, we can expand this project. You can use the same architecture for cars, for watch, for every product where there are modifications. But in the motorcycle sector, there are a lot of modification, a lot of money spent in tuning. So there is a huge focus on having back the money, and we have the knowledge of it. And we still speaking about blockchain to people who doesn't know what blockchain is. So we decided to be focused on one product in order to be able to focus the marketing message. Once that the motorcycle rider is able to use the application and to see that in 5 steps he can save his data in the blockchain, he can tell the other that this is really simple to save data in the blockchain. So maybe the next step will be to go for other markets. But in order to let the customer understand how does it work, we need to be focused on marketing message. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for these many questions. Indeed, it takes a while until a startup might get profitable. You can be incredibly rich on Excel sheets, as you have said very nicely. But of course, you know, it takes a while. But therefore, I think luckily you are in a growing market, right? Okay, let's turn towards a couple of more Q&A questions.
Oh, excuse me, Philip, may I answer some Q&A?
Please.
Because I've seen, I try to make it very briefly because
Yes.
I know we're running already over time, but somebody was asking about the paper. You know, this is still in the review cycle in academia. It takes a couple of years, but I can send you the latest version. Please send me an email. You can easily find my name and I'm happy to share with the papers with you. But since it hasn't been published yet, I cannot post a link because that takes a lot of time. Then there's a question from Mr. Barelli about UI interfaces, and which is a very good one because blockchain in the background is very complicated, but I worked a lot with my company to create an interface that's really easy to use, and we did some usability testing. But that's an excellent point because at the end of the day, you need to have an interface where normal end users do not need to know what kind of database they have in the background or what kind of ledger. And there's also one question about the environmental impact of your DLT. I think this is connected to the energy consumption of proof of work as we use it in Bitcoin. I just wanted to point out, I think we have a couple of solutions here who are piggyback riding on some other kind of blockchains or even permission blocked private blockchains that do not need that kind of energy consumption. My company, so to speak, Innovation, is building a solution on Stellar, for example, and they are doing even something that's good for the environment. But of course, it's some kind of trade-off, and people always associate blockchain with Bitcoin, with the energy consumption. But we need to make it clear that this is just one way, one part of the Nakamoto consensus, this proof of work. It's just one way of reaching an agreement, and hopefully in the future, they find other ways of doing it, or most likely in Bitcoin it will stay, but this is not something that all blockchains use. So I just wanted to answer very, very briefly this question.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, any final questions we should tackle? Robert, would you like to emphasize something? Should we focus on more Q&A questions?
Well, I think we've covered most of the questions from the Q&A. There's one regarding user interface. It's a bit texty, so I will shorten it. The question here is that UI is potentially being overlooked. So what are your thoughts surrounding a user interface going forward into the mass adoption of blockchain technology for those who are less technology inclined?
I would answer to that. That we find that the same thing as a barrier to entry for people into the blockchain space. So I totally agree with this. And I think one of the solutions is hosted wallets. So this is why we took this approach in the beginning to lower the barrier, and then later on propose to people when they understand a little bit more to host their own keys and to have their own keys. Then the distribution methods, this is why we try to create distribution methods for tokens which are more common and easier for people. And I agree that in many cases when people understand this, the responsibility of holding your keys, if you have a lot of value in your wallet, is also something that people, I don't know if ever will be comfortable with. Yeah, if you don't have a recovery mechanism to a third party, and some kind of insurance if something goes wrong, that you can roll back the transaction, which on blockchain is quite difficult. So I think having your own keys is not for everybody and will never be. And the user interface in this case has to be very sophisticated and very easy. And I think still hosted wallets, even though it's not so decentralized as we would like to have it, it's still a solution to provide an easier user interface. So these are my 2 cents on this question about the user interface.
That makes very much sense. Yeah. Well, you could basically shield the private key behind some kind of Face ID. And this will be very interesting once the iPhone and the Android phone is getting some kind of crypto kit and is getting a crypto chip, which is basically underway apparently. Then it gets really interesting because then you could shield the private key away from memorizing the word because it's then in your iPhone. But then, of course, other security measures are popping up. Okay, I will propose we are closing this round. I think it was very interesting. Thanks to the mentors, thanks to you as founders. I think we have seen that blockchain is extremely broad. I think it's growing, it's broad, it survived the pandemic. Of course it did. And I think we all within the blockchain industry here will look into a very interesting future. Bitcoin should be rising this year, DeFi on the rise, NFT hype coming in, new startups coming in, lots of venture capital being agglomerated, which then is rooted to you guys, right, hopefully. And therefore, I think we are all looking into a very, very interesting year. And therefore, thanks to all. Maybe anybody would like to say some closing words. Maybe Robert, you would like to say a last word, maybe Belan, maybe Horst?
Sure, I can close us off. So yeah, also from my side, thank you very much to everyone who participated. First of all, the panelists and of course the people viewing today's event. And from my side, special thank you to the Decentralized Learning Series team and Leonidas for setting this up. It was an absolute pleasure, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did.
Great. This has been a very interesting discussion, and I would like once again to thank our panelists. Also a big thank you to you all for your participation. Before closing the event, there is a number of announcements. As in the previous events, all attendees will receive a blockchain verifiable certificate of attendance. Also, we would much appreciate your input to a survey which will be circulated very soon. And the next DLS event is scheduled for the 20th of May, and the topic is digital identity and interoperability. Please visit decentralized.com for more information and registration. Once again, thank you very much, and we are looking forward to seeing you in our forthcoming DLS events. Thank you.